I know, I've already got it.
I didn't get your reference in my yearbook.
Yes.
That wasn't it. It was as the eternally grateful.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Alberts. Cooper. Ferguson.
Here.
Latin.
Here.
Foley. Janelli.
Here.
Katrina.
Here.
Heffervesta.
Present.
Camersack.
Here.
Tranzilla.
Here.
Just one.
Okay, we have recognitions. Boy, we have recognitions tonight. For those of you that didn't know, there was a reception here earlier, and it was to honor some of the people that are leaving our system after a number of years. I'm going to read their names along with the time here, and then ask you to come up, and then Sal will present you. Sal will present you with a gift. I'm sorry, but it's nice. And thank you. That's what I'm going to say. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Just thank you for the dedication you've shown for all of these years to the children of Danbury. You probably think that people don't pay attention. They do. On all levels pay attention. I'm a mom, first of all. I'm a child mentor of the school system. I've been a member of the Board of Education for 13 years. I've watched not each and every one of you work, but I've watched so many people work and share their minds and their lives with our kids. And we have great kids here, and they don't just come that way. Yeah, they come out of parents' homes, take care of them, but then they go to schools, and you people shape their lives. And thank you so much for doing it. I'm so very jealous as just a woman that I didn't choose your profession, so I have something to be that proud of at this part of my life. So thank you. I'm going to start reading, and please come up and get your certificate. Is Brian Gordo here? All right, I'm going to read this. I'm sorry. Linda Bird. I'm sorry, she was here 28 years. She is a language arts specialist at King Street Intermediate. Thank you, Linda. So Veronica was with us 30 years. She's a first grade teacher at Pembroke. Okay. Constance Grace. Social services facilitator here at Beechboro. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Hinckley. Mary Ann Okay, Dolores Kate Kelsey. 20 years at Northview Middle School. Over here, come on. Elizabeth Lyons. Irish pathologist at Ellsworth Elementary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Patricia Moran, as a second, and here's people that are just as valuable to us. She's a secretary of our middle school, and she's not here, okay? Moving on, Sandra Navarra. Enjoy, thank you. Barbara Shermer. Secretary of Rogers Park Middle School. I know.
Was he your fifth grade teacher or high school teacher?
Freshman, yep.
Freshman teacher?
There you go. Welcome to Denver.
He checked your transcript just to make sure.
Thank you very much.
I have Teresa Stahlheimer. For years, Teresa's been teaching grade 3 at King Street. Thank you very much. Please have a good term.
I look good.
Okay, here comes the biggie too, Donna Warner.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. Is there anybody that came in late that I don't have marked down here already? Please don't be shy.
Susie Haber.
I'm sorry?
Susie Haber.
Susie Haber. Got her? Susan, oh, I see her, sorry, Suzanne Haber, I mean, that's Susie. Suzanne Haber. Did anybody hear me? Does Rogers Park have a secretary left? Okay, it's coming. All right. Anybody else that we could neglect to call? Anybody else? Thank you. Okay, so we have another one that's here. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, one more.
Sue Bell.
Suzanne Bell.
Suzanne Bell, right on top. That's Suzanne. First, I'm just a regular and Karen. Very good. Thank you so very much. You will? Bill's gonna get her shoe. I know. You're back. Okay. Thank you. Again, thank you, and I mean that sincerely. On all levels, thank you. My heart is with you. My heart is very heavy on my next thing I'm going to talk about. That's not on anybody's agenda. I have another, Sal and I have another certificate to give out. Because the Danbury Board of Education has a certificate of appreciation for this person. This woman's name is Eileen Fitzgerald. She's the News Times education reporter that has covered the Danbury Public Schools for 17 years. For 17 years. God bless her. All I can say is thank you, Eileen. Thank you so very much for everything you've done for us. And I'm going to cry. I think that's it.
Is that you get a good editorial?
She tells everybody else what my thoughts were, but then I just realized that stupid camera stuff. Okay. All right, here we come. It's public participation. We have no one that signed up, and I have to read it, so I'm going to go through it. The board welcomes public participation and asks that speakers please limit their comments to 3 minutes. Speakers may offer objective comments of school operations and programs that concern them. The board will not permit any expression of personal complaints or defamatory comments about the Board of Education personnel? Or against it, of course. The Danbury Public School System. It's been lovely. Yes.
I would like to just
I forgot to bring words. All right. Is there anybody that needs to speak on it? Besides us? Anybody? Go once, twice, 3 times? Okay. Excuse me. Our next piece is our consent calendar. Can everybody hear me speak into the microphone? No? It comes and goes.
Yeah, but now I can hear you.
Okay, so if I hold it,
That's good.
sorry. All right. Okay, consent calendar. Speaking into it. Yes. I get.
Okay, motion that the Board of Education approve the items on the consent calendar as recommended, 14-145 through 14-150.
Seconded by Gladys. Are there any questions? Any discussions? Seeing none. All in favor? Any objections? Abstentions? All right, thank you. We did the personnel report in case we didn't notice that. Employee representatives? Okay, seeing none, we're moving right on to the student representatives. Here we go.
Okay. Hi, you may know me. I'm now the former Board of Governors Secretary at Danbury High School. The only thing we can talk about is we had our graduation took place last Tuesday, the 17th. It went just as planned. We had great speakers and great weather, and it couldn't have gone any better.
So now I'd like to introduce the new Board of Ed, BOG, Governors for Danbury High School. Sorry.
Okay.
So for President, we have Jamie Gurna. Vice President, we have Grace Gelati. Secretary, Allie Smith. And Treasurer, Tyler Amaral. As a whole, we just like to thank you guys for everything that you've done. We appreciate it, and just thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being as emotional as I am. But thank you. And you've done a wonderful job. You've got big shoes to fill. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks. Moving along. And you may leave. I don't know if they tell you. Don't, if they tell you have to stay, you can come.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, we're on to our presentation. Yes?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, I'm sorry.
Am I doing that now?
Yes.
Okay.
Kara,
Give the
you
presentation.
will be the presentation.
I am the presentation.
Kara is also, just so you know, she's been with us for a number of years in the early childhood program. Since she's transitioned into this work, but she's also now taken over her handling.
Oh.
And she has done an unbelievable job transitioning into that and then taking us to the next step of teacher eval and everything else that we do. So, I want to thank you for that.
Thank
This
you.
is her love as well that she's going to
This
be
is
doing.
my love as well.
So
Yes.
I'll let you go.
Okay, great. So in my other life outside data analysis and reporting, I've been working on a project in cooperation with Danbury Public Schools and the School Readiness Council in Danbury over probably since last September. Officially, it started this January, and it's going to be rolled out through June 2015. So I just wanted to come and update you and tell you a little bit about it. It's a program called Solid Ground, and it has been developed kind of out of several veins of necessity in the community. Early childhood obviously is a huge thing in our community of collaboration across all different financial support systems, school readiness, Head Start, private funded programs. And what is increasingly a problem in the early childhood setting, as well as K through 2, is how are teachers being supported in addressing challenging behaviors in the classroom. And teachers really have been reporting high rates of frustration and not having the tools to deal with the way that kids are coming to them. And then that in preschool and then moving into kindergarten. So for the last couple of years, I've been trained nationally in a certain approach called the pyramid approach, of how to address challenging behaviors in the classroom and prevent them. And it was developed out of Vanderbilt University, and it was developed out of federal dollars. It then has gone throughout the country. Many states have collaboratives dedicated to this approach. And so I had been attending this national conference and using it on the classrooms that I supported and the teachers that I supported through Head Start and other programs. But I was really seeing a lack in the community. So many people kept reporting the same thing. We had really high rates of referrals to special education in the preschool program that were really based on kids' behavior rather than a special education need. So as we started to develop and think about what could we do, we started a mental health task force for young children in the community. Fran Tailuki sits on that, Family and Children's Aid, myself, Children's First, and a couple other stakeholders. And we started to develop an idea about single point of entry, how do we support children. Then we really talked about what can we do to support teachers. So at that point, Sal and Bill and Joe and Kim started to sit with me and talk about how we can implement this in Delray Public Schools in conjunction with Eileen Costello, who's the School Readiness Council. And so I outlined a couple of the points. You can read as much as this packet as you want or as little, but there are just some highlights about this Cephal pyramid approach. It talks about how to develop high quality and supportive environments to children based on what your relationship is with the child. And some of the points of the program are providing training and technical assistance to programs, helping teachers develop competence, and developing a master cadre of trainers even in our community. So it's using the model of train, coach, so that they actually have embedded coaches in the program that can help support them ongoing. Then we talk about how do we teach targeted social emotional supports in the classroom? How do we teach kids the right thing to do and support teachers in how to do that? And then as well as the top of the pyramid, as we call it, the kids with the most intense, challenging behavior that are often identified as having a mental health issue. So there are kind of different points that you can look at that are more in depth about it. The second page is the pyramid model itself, if you want to take a look at that. And the training has developed based on this model. So we have had 2 cohorts in Danbury already. We're in our second stage, and we have cohort 1 who's been trained for the nurturing and responsive relationships, high quality supportive environments, and how to teach targeted social emotional supports. Then we have our cohort 2, who are their teaching assistants. We have had Danbury Public School social workers attend this training, as well as special ed facilitators and special education teachers, and they have received all of this training. In the fall, both cohorts are going to come together and do the TOPS training together, and that's how to write a really good positive behavior support plan for a child in conjunction with their family and with support services. So this is kind of where we are with the model right now. I included an update behind this pyramid model of how many people we've trained, what our projections are for next year. One of the things is that I started to meet with the executive director for the Commission on Children for the state of Connecticut, and she's very interested in highlighting this model as it relates to the new child mental health bill. So we'll be presenting to the cabinet up in Hartford about how this program is going. It's also going to be highlighted in what's happening in cities, what are good things that are happening in cities across Connecticut. And it was actually mentioned at a press conference today with the Lieutenant Governor. So this is exciting things that are happening, and it's helping teachers just get the tools that they need to work with these kids who are coming to them really different than they did 5 years ago. And just for future projections, we've been working with Wheelock College as the technical assistance support, and they have been great. And they do this at a state level for the state of Massachusetts, and they've been incredibly gracious to us to invite us up to their state leadership meetings, so we've been attending those. And the kindergarten teachers that attended the kindergarten transition professional development workshop, it was about a month ago in May, they requested that we start a kindergarten cohort for teachers. And they said this is stuff we could really use on a regular basis. We'd really love the help because we don't know what to do. So these are things I've been working on.
And these are wonderful things.
Yeah.
I need time to digest it.
Yeah, it's a lot, so I don't want to take up too much time today, but it's really based on, the approach is basing the training on what is your relationship with the child, what's the environment and the context that you're setting for the child, and when you have that in place first, then you can move into more targeted social emotional supports and things like that. So it's a lot about teacher reflection. And it's really in an effort to lower expulsion rate in preschool programs, which is very high. It doesn't help anybody in the public school system.
It is. Eventually it does. I mean,
it does.
It does.
Because they don't come ready at all.
Kathy,
Okay, so does this support, or does this whole program support a higher age for entry for kindergarten? Because we are pushing the curriculum down to kindergarten, maybe that's where the level of frustration comes, not only for the child,
Right.
but for the teacher also, because it's not what they signed up for either.
That's right. So, when we talk about, we work with the parameters that we have, certainly so we try to help teachers, just like kids, we teach teachers to start reflecting on, you meet kids where they are, and so we help coaches meet where teachers are and what they have to deal with, just like kids come with all their stuff too, right? We would love to have, I think, in the land of early childhood, a place where things felt more developmentally appropriate for their age. I mean, the expectations and understanding of where kids are when they enter kindergarten and what tools they have to be successful is really important to consider. But certainly, if legislation stays what it is, these are the things that we need to help teachers with in the meantime, particularly when they have a ton of stressors. I mean, kids, what they find with research is that kids who have overcome adversity and are adults now, what was the determining factor, right? What helped them be resilient? What helped them be, overcome all of these circumstances? And the defining factor, the stuff that Segal has worked on, is what they call a charismatic adult in their life. So it's like they need to be able to form relationships, right? And if they're not doing that at the earliest level, they're not going to do that later. So they have to make connections with teachers and each other in order to form a really good education and learning environment. And so that's where this starts, and then it works up. Because if you don't have the social emotional supports in place, the learning can't take place because they're not listening, they're not learning, And I know who's been in a classroom knows what that feels like when it's a child can't attend to tasks and can't follow directions or can't make connections with other kids or can't make a connection with you. So we've had teachers, really good special ed teachers, go through this program. The people who came, who are considered the best, and they're like, this is what I need to be reminded of. I thought I had 5 kids with behaviors in my classroom. I really only have 1. Because what we teach them to do is when something's happening, you go back to the bottom of the pyramid. What's your relationship with the child? What's your environment? And what have you taught them to do, right? So she's like, now I realize I really only have 1. And it's been life-changing. you know? So it's really meeting teachers where they are, and the setting, what we call the setting for the kid is also the setting for the adult. So,
Just back on your agenda, I'm serious, like that mid-year next year, I'd like to hear
That's great.
what's coming up.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, thank you.
No, just for the board, the help you've given us before they came on, convince us to be more attentive to the development of youngsters, for what we do. And I think that's been, serendipity a really benefiting part. When you combine it with this reflective piece that Carrie can roll out for us, we think, we'll make a better match. I'm really excited about that. Because I'm on the readiness council where we talk about this. It's really been a goal of ours. That's why she's going to continue doing this, and she's doing a really good job.
Like facilitate. Yeah.
She's working for the readiness people doing this, so we will continue.
Thank you.
Did you quite understand the coaching relevant to the teachers is it K through 5 or is it just preschool?
Right now it's through preschool, but as we think about scaling up and starting a kindergarten cohort, we will be moving in that direction. The other piece that I forgot to mention is the Yale Child Study Center asked us to come collaborate on a couple things down there, and they're interested in working with us about school climate, and that would be K-12. So we're a part of like a small cohort in the state now of people who are interested in really understanding the school climate and supporting kids and teachers in that. So it's going to look different at different levels, but it's just starting to lend more and more attention to this across all grade levels. But this specific approach starts in early childhood and goes up to about age 8. And then there's other PBIS supports.
But the theory itself could be applicable through K through 12 with different twists and
Right.
scenarios to the course.
That's right. And they've worked a lot, the different colleges who supported this have worked a lot with scaling up throughout entire districts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Sorry, we had a little side conversation with that. Anybody else have any questions for her?
Thank you, Carrie.
You're welcome. No, thank you. Thanks. Alrighty. Action items.
That the Board of Education authorize the transfer of up to $1.5 million into the City of Danbury Self-Insurance Reserve Fund.
Seconded by Bob. Seconded by Bob Taversack. Any questions? Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Got it. Moving on. Action item B.
Just 1 second, this brings our account to about how much?
$2 million.
I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry, we didn't sorry.
No, we currently have $500,000 in a reserve fund, and with the up to $1.5 million would be $2 million of the reserve. We have to comply at $4.5 million to be fully reserved.
Thank you.
Would you look to have a half million discretionary
Yeah.
for the general fund?
Okay, Richard's making jokes over here. Okay. Item B.
That the Board of Education authorize the allocation of funds out of the rental fund for refinishing the gym floor at Broadview Middle School not to exceed $30,000 in accordance with 14-151.
Seconded by Ralph. Any questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Got it. C.
That the Board of Education accept the May 2014 operating results analysis of the general fund in accordance with 14-152.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Seconded by Gladys. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Objections? Yes, abstentions, never mind. Go, Kat.
That the Board of Education accept the May 2014 operating results analysis for grants and projects in accordance with 14-153.
Seconded by Michael Ferguson. Any discussion?
One note, quick. Medicaid, we received $300,000 for our Medicaid reimbursement. We actually received a check June 30th, so that is actually not in representative grants account. That's an application to submit your.
So I can buy my new shoes?
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Any,
300,000.
seeing no discussion, all in favor? Abstentions? No, got it. Moving along.
That the Board of Education approve the building rental fees for the 2014-2015 school year in accordance with 14-154.
Seconded by whom? Who seconded? I didn't see here. Gladys. Okay, any discussion? Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Abstentions? Objections? Got it? Moving along.
That the Board of Education approve the annual school lunch service agreement between the Danbury Public Schools and Sodexo Management Incorporated for the school year 14-15, and to grant the superintendent the right to execute the agreement on behalf of the Board of Education in accordance with 14-155.
Seconded by Bob Taversack. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. Passed unanimously. Go, Kev.
That the Board of Education approve the inter-school agreements for school lunch services at St. Greg's, St. Pete's, St. Joseph's, Education Connections / Access Pathways in accordance with 14-156.
Any discussion or questions? Gladys?
No,
Did you
sorry.
second it? Sorry. No, okay.
Just something to ask that one question.
Yes.
Is there a certain amount of dollars that we give to Pathway Church? Or is this Pathway?
This allows us to service them. Basically, we provide, Derek explained it, we basically have an agreement with them to provide food service to them. There's a reimbursable amount. So in other words, people pay at Pathways for food. It's just basically agreeing with them on the rates.
Okay, do you know how many?
Sure. About how many pathways?
Pathways is about 30, maybe 32.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a question. I've always assumed that free lunch provisions and the requirements are the same we have in the public school code for this, right? So if the student is in need, then you get the subsidies.
Yes.
Okay, I just assumed.
Once they were recognized by the state, it permitted us to do that.
Okay, that's the thing I was concerned, you know. Okay.
Also, so the board knows, we operate this, what's called the seamless summer, so we're now reaching out this year to all the surrounding communities, Bethel and some of the other areas, so we can service them as well, because they don't have a bag and go program. Danbury does, so we're trying to get the word out.
Well,
So
they're perfect.
Good.
We just do it perfect.
That's all I wanted.
Is there any other discussion on the subject? All right, seeing none, all in favor? Passes again, unanimously. Next, Bill.
That the Board of Education approve the revisions to the high school and middle school conduct codes for the 2014-15 school year in accordance with 14-157.
Is there any discussion? Phyllis?
Yeah, somebody just, I read those, highlighted, I assume, for the changes.
Yes.
Can you just know kind of what
Okay.
prompted these changes?
Yes, Dr. Glass will handle that.
The conduct codes have been in place, as you know, Phyllis and Bob, since you probably first started working at the school level. So what happens each year, they review, because they're pretty dense documents, and if there are any tweaks that need to be made, we make those fine tunings. Typically, they're made with the principal and assistant principals. It could be the principal and PBS staff, or the school climate specialists we have now, deans of students. So I can very quickly walk you through. If you start with the middle school, we only had 3 changes. I'll give you the easiest example. If you look on the second page, you'll see in bold print the word endeavor. That used to be Project Revolve, and so all we did was update the name. If you look to the left, we're bullying. We used to have 3 days of in-school suspension. We're clamping down more, we're making it 1 day out-of-school suspension, so students realize the seriousness of this. And if you look at the very bottom where it says bullying, any overt act by a student, etc., etc., at the bottom it says includes social media. That was never there before. But now a lot of cyberbullying is starting to take place, much more so in some cases than actual physical bullying. Those are the only changes to the code for middle school. If you go to the high school, second page, the only difference on the first page is for updating, just as the data has been changed. On the far left, you'll see arson, false alarm, and threat to school population. It used to be bomb threat. And so now we've just increased that because it catches more. If you look in the second column, where it says C of subordination, and if you go up at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, where it says insubordination, and you look at the consequences, it's the same for inappropriate dress because it's being deemed as insubordinate. You're not following the rules. So all it says is just the same. You used to have the same language there. They just kind of abbreviated it. If you go to the far right, you'll see the term SRBI, and apologize for the acronym. It's just kind of shorthand language for educators. It stands for Scientific Research-Based Interventions. If you hear RTI's response to intervention, this simply means there's a 3-tiered approach to addressing inappropriate behavior. And Tier 1 takes place the vast majority of it in the classroom. Tier 2 is for the specialists. Tier 3 says there may be a special needs issue here. And so before we push that button, and you heard Kara say, there was a lot of referral to preschool kids because of behavior. They weren't special needs kids, they just had behavioral issues. So the SRBI process really eclipses that. If you look to the next one down, confiscation of hats, headwear, etc., etc. First time 2-hour detention is new, second time 1 day in-school suspension is new. So there's a disciplinary consequence besides just taking the stuff away. If you look at the next, away from class cutting, first 1 day in-school suspension used to be 1 hour detention, so we're just strengthening a little bit. Second is 2 days in-school suspension, used to be 2-hour detention. And the third is a 1 day out-of-school suspension and parent conference that used to be 1 in-school suspension. We eliminated the one following that. It really ties more into being AWOL from class or loitering, so the same consequences are levied there. And lastly, at the very bottom, failure to comply with the rules of in-school suspension will result in the referral to the administrator. So just because we put kids in the in-school suspension unit, it doesn't mean they're behaving there either. So if they get out of line, the administrator's calls, there are consequences on top of the consequences.
Thank you.
Sure, my pleasure.
I was just curious, is there any, I guess I'm just looking for the thinking behind the change of the 2 days that it was on middle school, and this is really small, I'm trying.
Middle school?
I'm trying to read it. I got the glasses on. Even with my glasses, this is really small. Do you have the big copy or copy? I think it was 3 days in school suspension or something, and it went to 2
Oh, yes.
and 1 hour.
This is for bullying?
Yeah, that
Yes,
was
the middle school, yes.
Was there any, what was the discussion behind outside school suspension being more strict? Like, what, I guess what I'm trying to say is, why is that felt that seems to be a more stronger approach?
Sure.
Just wondering where that came from.
Traditionally, we've always had out-of-school suspension. So you're suspended, you're home for the day, you're home for the week, whatever, for a maximum of 10 days out-of-school suspension. We want, it really ties back to your calendar conversation, we want to have kids in school and not missing instructional time. So we created the in-school suspension room, and kids would have, they would be able to continue their instructional program during that time. What we found is it's not a deterrent to actual bullying. Kids could even be bullying in school during the in-school suspension time. So we found that it's a greater deterrent to keep kids from bullying. Not so much the first time, you're out of school for a day of suspension. But when we have repeat offenders and we mandate reporters to report all this and we have to document, take disciplinary action, the parents have to come in when they want to bring their child in from out of school suspension. And it really was inconvenient for parents. And so by removing a student from school, we lose instructional time for that day, but we've seen an ability to drive down the degree of bullying that we haven't seen in school suspension. All these consequences simply should be lumped under the concept of deterrence, and this is a greater deterrent to bullying than the other one was, and the other consequence was. The last thing that ties into this, if you look, as you can see, these are very dense. We've worked on these for years. Of all the items on both conduct codes that are most concerning, bullying hits number one. And so we're trying to be not more aggressive, because I think we've always been pretty aggressive at the school level, but we're really ramping up the consequences for students. It's just unacceptable by any means. With the final thing, the hardest one to come around is cyberbullying, because it doesn't take place during school time typically.
So, and the one that you said about the parents that's come in, which one was that?
If a student has out-of-school suspension, you can't come back to school unless your parent brings you in. And so the parent sits with the principal, and the principal says, this is why Michael was suspended in the first place, and so let's have a little conversation, and we bring Michael in. Depending on the infraction, sometimes before Michael goes back to class, he might go to a counselor, he might go to a social worker, psychologist. It ties right into what Kara was saying, our upper grade version of it. And so it's not just you're out and you're back. It doesn't necessarily do anything other than, in some cases, it could be viewed as thank you. Get to go to mom. So we have to tie that into a re-entry plan. If it's the first time, one and done, it's very minor. If it's a repeat offender, the re-entry gets increasingly harder, and there are more resources, support put around that, and more ongoing conversation with the home.
Is there anyone else who have any questions on this subject? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? One more time I'm going to ask. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any objections or abstentions? All right, thank you. All right, we're on to you, Dr. Sal.
Just getting back to the Sedesco, a number of years ago, we had a problem with the accountant. It is, these reports, since that time, I don't think we've ever brought up the data or anything like that. Do we get reports from them as to how we are doing our account with them? Correct. So that it's not a surprise like we had the last time, there was a short payment?
No, at the end of the year, as part of our audit process, we score off with the Sodexo. So in a sense, we're on our books against their books to see, there's different things that are expended on Sodexo, and they're now allowed by us, so we basically, in a sense, square off and balance. The interesting part of school lunch now, because of our increased enrollment, Torrance always running deficit, but actually the deficits are becoming smaller and smaller. The deficit, I believe, last year, the deficit last year is about maybe 100,000 or something. It's actually this year, it's coming closer to being zero. So we do that every year. That is part of our process.
So the school has, we have no liability or anything like that?
No, the only liability the board has is what's called unpaid lunches. So it's on the books today. There is, the board heard years ago about the cheese sandwich. So if you have a negative balance, we issue you a cheese sandwich. We are providing a full lunch with a meal, but in a sense, there is some penalty for carrying a balance on your account. So right now, I believe at last run, we're just looking at it's about $55,000 unpaid balance. Now, some of those are free and reduced lunch students. So in other words, there's time between paperwork when they actually become free. So the odds of seeing that money back, we always make good on the free and reduced lunch students because we know that we'll never be able to pay. We do approximately paid lunches about $35,000 unpaid. And we do try to go and work with the kids and work with the parents, but every year we always have some balance. When I got here, it's about 90,000, so we've tracked it down considerably. We've done emails, we've done a lot of different things, backpack the negative balance that was home, so we do try to. And if you like as well, I can update the finance committee in September on this one.
Anybody else have any discussions before Sal takes off on this rant? This one, I mean. Dr. Hasbro.
Summer space relocation and redistrict. We had a walk through, yesterday over at Westside Academy, and it's remarkable what has been done.
Yes.
I think it was here, right? Next. It really, the town needs to be commended. Tony and his group, we should be ready by, we shut a date out, July 15th.
Yeah, on July 15th, July 20th, we turned over. Staffing and shelter about the same time frame. Park Avenue,
About the 15th of August.
August. Park's gonna be, we're gonna be tight on park.
We
all know that.
But we knew that.
Yeah, we've known that.
Joe and Richard have plans ready to go to move equipment. A lot of the equipment that's new is not as problematic at Westside, but moving classrooms around and things of that nature.
Park Ave will be the hardest because it'll be late, obviously, to get it.
And you have this phenomenon that's happening. You may recall when Shelter Rock was growing, and by 50% than it did for a year or two. Where the kids went, I went to Morris. We had Morris love on us. In looking at the redistricting, we've had to, it looked like there's some shifting going on, unfortunately. So, luckily we've had the sister school arrangement, where we can use it. But we're able to move about and open up a few more classrooms that we didn't expect over at Ellsworth. I think at Morris, which we didn't expect. And I think total, I must say, we in the budget, we stayed within the budget of the 8 teachers that we non-FTEs for the elementary.
Correct, and we also have the all-day kindergarten slots inside ECS. We're not opening new classrooms at Morris.
We did.
No, we're not opening new classrooms. Morris did not lose any classrooms. There's a lot in Bill's.
We thought perhaps they were going to reduce one.
We have a lot that are on the bubble, like a 20, 28, 27. So if you leave those across, that's going to present a problem. So I mean, it's early days. I mean, we really, as Bill knows, we don't settle on this till towards the middle of August at least. But right now, with Ellsworth, we're looking at addition. Park Ave, we're looking at 7 classrooms at Park Ave.
And Shelter, I think we're looking at an extra.
Shelter, we're looking at, there's significant K growth at Shelter Rock, which has been very interesting to see all of a sudden. So, Shelter.
It might be that kind of,
I keep looking at that thinking, okay, and Mill Ridge too. Mill Ridge is going to be, we're going to run 5 across at Mill Ridge for all day K. We're going to have a smaller classroom there, but everyone's going to fit. We did drop numbers, but we picked up numbers. It's been interesting. There's some shifting too in the city and since we redistricted. It's very interesting to see.
So August 8th, when the principals return, their first task with Bill will be to confirm the exiting students that have gone, and then who've re-enrolled. And then if there's a need to add, we'll do that. Last year, we combined one and moved somebody over. Sometimes, it drops, and that can happen as well. So we'll be mindful of that. But we're ready to go, and there's a crew ready to move equipment. Bill and the principals are keeping an eye on the enrollment. But there is some shifting going on. That will stay with staffing updates on those with A and B. End of year resource reallocation. Do you have something there?
We are, as we didn't have updated the board in years prior, we are spending down our fund balance and closing out our books at the end of the year. We're trying to address some key concerns at the board and at the school level related to textbooks and materials. Bill and I have been working closely on getting some resources allocated to our libraries. We've put approximately $48,000 into our libraries across. We're actually looking at an additional $50,000 there. We're meeting with IDT regularly as far as textbook requests and getting those approved. Some AP Chem. We've got some new math manipulatives for the K-5 level. We are looking at additional technology deployments to try to get in compliance with SBAC. At the same time, we're also looking at possibility of making a prepayment on one of our leases. So the board knows with self-insurance, you have there's kind of the only bad part is you have, in theory, your claims hit every week. And the board's claims hit between $300,000 and $750,000. So you have these large swings that happen in the account. So as you close the books down, there is significant dollars that could swing. So you can't necessarily, make commitments to things like today. I mean, our actual last drawdown will hit on Thursday night. But yeah, a lot of good stuff in the material.
So a little bit about summer profession at all?
We have our new teacher orientation series that takes place every summer. We're trying to move it over to Western Connecticut State University. We're partnered with WestCon on the Marzano teacher evaluation model, and so we're doing some training this summer for our new folks on Marzano teacher eval at WestCon, and we've invited the WestCon faculty to come in and some of the teacher prep students, which is kind of a nice piece. We've just been working on, and we have in draft form right now, we have a number of new administrators, as you know, some folks who have never been principals before, either assistant principals or department head types. So we have created a formal mentoring program where each new person is assigned a formal mentor. Joe, when you're done, my rug is messy too.
Luckily, we're shampooing this summer. That's the good news.
So each new administrator has a formal mentor. We're looking at the concept of a principal coach, still under the works, but somebody who can help with generic instructional coaching skills. We have our folks enrolled in the Connecticut Association of Schools CAS New School Leader Series. It's a 6-session series. We have the Shriner doing Marzano coaching and integrated reliability, so everybody sees the same thing. This takes place in August. We have folks over the summer that are going to Teachers College Columbia for the Readers and Writers Workshop model. Starting in the very beginning of the school year, we have people like Chris Ross Pendle, Harry Ross Valley, Kara Casimiro, and Augusto Gomes doing orientation on their specific content areas based on the individual need. Human Resources always has a piece that's critical with procedures and practices that are tied directly to how you actually operationalize the whole personnel function at the building and department level. Technology and data. Kara, that's my punctuate at this house. Kara Wanzer has been a gift to the district. She came in running and never stopped, and she's really helped us tremendously. So I want to benefit from her expertise and have some data analysis sessions done. At the same time, with the new technology coming in, some of this is different kind of technology. We're doing something called the Dibbles assessment over at Norwich Primary. Those teachers are going through iPad training because they're used to laptops, different. And then lastly, we have for administrators what we're calling Tier 2 training. These are folks who have been with us already, but this is their second year, so they need a little bit more in-depth training on Marzano, side-by-side coaching. And we're also trying to work with the RESC Alliance to get coaching, the 50 days worth of coaching from RESC, the RESC Education Connection, to come in and work with our current coaches on deeper levels of coaching skills. We're really excited about the programs that we put together. It's probably the deepest level of saturation that we've ever had. And then this will all be married up to the new professional development model that we've worked through with the board. So thank you again for that.
And I'll be involved in the urban, I was invited to participate in the urban leadership program in Harvard for a week this summer, which I'm excited about.
Is that Bill? The coaching of principals, is that done through Education Connections, or who provides, people who are, people who are experienced in the administration, how is it done?
It's two ways. It's both is the simple answer. With the RESC Alliance, Regional Educational Service Center, RESC Alliance, these are professionally trained coaches that will work, for example, with assistant principals who we're going to do this at the secondary level. So these are really targeted around our newer APs, but certainly our veteran APs can benefit from it. And those people have been specially trained to do this kind of work. We also have our internal folks who are serving as mentors, and Edie Thomas is a good example. Edie is going to be mentoring the Surlock and the principal, and Edie has gone through different kinds of training to help her, be very sophisticated in this. Linda Schreiner spent 7 years with Bob Marzano out in Colorado. She's going to be doing side-by-side coaching. So it's a blended kind of approach. At Southside, up in Harvard, it's a remarkable program up there. We also have one of our folks in the LEAD program, Dan Donovan, who's traveled to Chicago, who's traveled to Boston. He's bringing back information from which we can benefit. And then tomorrow, Sal and Kara Casimiro, the other Kara, and I are going up to the Heritage Conference Center for the CAS Summer Leadership Institute, and we're going to be presenting on the board's coherence plan. So it's kind of a nice thing because Jonathan, as you may recall, said Danbury's farther ahead than anybody else in the state on this, so they've asked us to do this presentation. Busy summer, but really good.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
I just want to give a quick comment on hiring.
Sure.
See where we're at.
Yep. Busy summer in a different way, slightly, but we are on track with hiring. Actually, we're a little bit probably further ahead than we normally are this time of year. Save for one certified slot, the new middle school is fully staffed. So that was a big deal to kind of get over the hump on that one. And the second year,
I need to thank the board for having Frank come in early. I can't tell you how beneficial it was. That's just so fun and back.
Bill, this was interrupting, that's how we interrupted.
Yes, I'm just telling you, you got case in point, that was a wonderful thing you had.
and he's really devoted the better part of the last 6 weeks to interview panels and demo lessons, and so he's really done a lot of the laboring around that. But at the secondary level, we're in very good shape. Elementary level, we're just kind of peaking now, getting those slots filled. We're going to have some transition again in August, as we do every year. Just trying to make sure we know where everybody's going to move to. But right now, we don't have any layoffs. We've actually managed to expand. And so we're going to continue to look at those numbers as they start to come in August again, to see if there's any additional hiring. But I'm confident that we're going to be done with the lion's share of our work in the next couple of weeks. And again, the yeoman's work from my office. And they're working lots of long hours trying to get everybody in and processed, from summer school all the way through to our certified and non-certified staff for the fall. The other big thing that's happening is we are rolling out a lot of information on the HSA plan because, as you'll remember, all of the teachers and administrators are going into the plan effective September 1. So we're still doing some servicing of people that have been in the plan for a little while and also educating those who are going to go in the fall. So that's another piece that's kind of running hand in hand with the hiring. But I think we're going to have an excellent group again. I think that the hard work that all of our administrators are doing on their hiring year in and year out now is really paying off. We've seen far fewer renewals and personnel-related or performance-related challenges because I think we've invested a lot of time and energy on who we're bringing in. So that's really been a credit to all of the administrators that have been involved in the process. So we're in good shape.
Thank you, Ken. Does anybody have any questions for Ken? Okay, just 1 second before you continue. No, you still have 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. Okay, I thanked everybody else in the world, and I don't think I've said thank you to you. You have done the women's job this year. I've never seen, and I've been here a long time, a director of work as long and as hard as you have this year. Thank you very much, because you did get it seem effortless, unless you really looked in your eyes and you looked a little crazy. But other than that, everything was just 1, 2, 3. Thank you very, very much. You're very, very professional at what you do. Unlike Joe, who the phone's in.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, he's on. Just phone him. Thank you. I was tired of giving you praise, so I'm not doing it. All right, next on the agenda, Dr. Sal, go.
Well, the last thing I had, those of you who attended graduation, I witnessed what I did. I thought it was wonderful. The kids' behavior, the faculty, we walked off and to look down the road at faculty this year, it looked like it was twice as many. It was phenomenal to see that. I've got to get that poem from there from the young lady. It was a phenomenal poem.
Why am I harder?
I've got to get to do that. Just all of it was, and I've been around in terms of graduations and respect that Gary and the group talked to the youngsters about the young adults and the importance of making it a respectful, regal themselves and the parents really resonates in the overall tenor and graduation. I'm just so proud of them all. It's nice.
There was a conversation that went on as we were walking on the field between Mike Ferguson and I, negative Mike, and we were talking about graduation, about the crowds of parents, and how in Danbury you can have everybody, you can come, the grandparents. And when I was coming in, there was obviously a middle class family coming in, and there were two sets of grandparents and the parents. And that was at whatever time, it was like 4 o'clock, it was equal, when I got there, it was like ridiculously early time, 3:30, 4 o'clock. But that's what makes Danbury unique. We're not at WestCon with two people from your family attending. We're there and they're spread all over the grass, and you look at them and you see the kids. And Mike said, it's like coming home, it's like family. And that's exactly what it feels like when you walk in that field. It has for 13 years, and as it's just amazing. It's the most amazing thing. What makes us unique. I'm sorry, guys. I haven't been to any other district as large as us who do it that way. And it's always been that way. And as long as we can keep it that way, please let's keep it that way. And you guys weren't too shabby. I was rather impressed with your common circumstance also. Already. Okay. What a surprise, the person that hasn't shut up all night doesn't have a report. Other than thanks, it's been a great school year. I've had a great time, and we've done a lot of good things. And thank you very much. I think I'm not going to talk to you anymore because I'm hard, but thank you. Thanks everybody. Board reports. Does anybody have a report? Richard?
Nothing since the last.
And Rose? Gladys? Thanks. You did a yeoman job on that. Superintendent. There you go. Ralph, thanks for the ice cream. Michael? What did he do? I didn't have your name. David? Bob? We're done. It's the end of the year. We're done. Thank you very much, everybody. Please do not let there not be an executive session.
Executive session.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to see. Did I say crap?
Yeah, so wait a minute.
So the only time you talk to me so it happened to the LA mayor, right?
Okay.
So moved.
All right. We're in executive session. Thank you very much for everybody that's here.
Thanks, Sterling.
Good night, see you in September. I'd sing, but it's not working. And Sterling, thank you. Now, there's nobody running, nobody's arguing you. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thanks for what you've done to the whole, our whole presentation, everything. Thank you very, very much.
I want to say what's in my heart.
So much easier to come from your home than because then you can choose issues while you're watching it.
I played wall.
I think we're going to get new
We're gonna go there. We're gonna ride horses.
I'll let the fucking more stuff.
Like, I can even see which topics
Are the
are more interesting to.
That's interesting. That's actually interesting.